Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has been out for over 11 years now, with a movie adaptation coming in a few months. But one of the biggest questions theorists have about the game has gone unanswered for over a decade by now. Was there really another set of murders committed by William Afton in 1987? We all know about the missing children incident in 1985, and how the 5 kids that Afton kidnapped ended up possessing the original animatronics. But what if there were more? This question has been plaguing the community since almost the very beginning, and I think I found a clue hidden deep in the source code of Fnaf 2 that has the potential to solve everything we didn't know about this game. I'm Withered Circle, and this is how Fnaf 2 source code answers its biggest lore mystery. I'm sure some of you are confused, so let me explain what I'm talking about. In Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we're obviously introduced to the new cast of toy animatronics alongside the original animatronics, who are now withered. These new toys are stated to have superior technology to their original counterparts, with facial recognition software installed by Fazbear Entertainment.
Fazbear Entertainment is committed to family fun and above all, they've spent a small fortune on these new animatronics. Facial recognition, advanced mobility. They even let them walk around during the day. Isn't that neat? But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away. Heck, we should be paying them to guard you.
But right away, theorists noticed that the toys were off. Looking at several camera renders from Fnaf 2, you could see the empty sockets and silver eyes that the possessed Fnaf 1 animatronics have, and we learned in the Silver Eyes novel that these eyes are indicative of possession. But despite that, many people still think the toy animatronics aren't possessed and are instead fully powered by AI. One key piece of evidence that many theorists use for the toys being possessed is the Save Them minigame from Fnaf 2. For context, Fnaf 2 has 4 death minigames that can be played after getting jump scared, and one of them is Save Them, which has the player, Withered Freddy, walk around the Fnaf 2 location after the puppet, as the corpses of several children are scattered across the building. Rarely, the purple guy, William Afton, will attack the player and end the minigame early, but I'm sure you all know this. You probably also know that you should subscribe, but suit yourself. This incident is called the DCI by theorists, standing for Dead Children Incident. This parallels the MCI, or Missing Children Incident, which is the name given to the 1985 murders by fans. I'll use these names from now on so I don't have to say the set of dead kids from Fnaf 2 or the missing kids from 1985 every time I bring these kids up, because I'll be bringing them up like every sentence, so please just remember them. But while a lot of theorists agreed that this was a new set of dead kids that ended up possessing the toys, many disagreed and proposed a different option. That these were the corpses of the MCI kids from the withered animatronics. Think about it. We know that in Fnaf 2, Fazbear Entertainment rebuilt the withered animatronics with new parts, and if they had disassembled them, surely they'd find the corpses of the MCI still stuck inside them, right? So what if Save Them is showing William disassembling the withered animatronics and extracting the MCI kids out of them, explaining why their bodies are scattered across the location? Many theorists latched onto this idea instantly, and still believe it to this day. In fact, the debate over whether or not this is a new set of killings done by William has been a major debate in the fandom for ages, as it's vital to understanding what happened to the toys after Fnaf 2. But anyway, back to Save Them. The idea that these are MCI bodies isn't just unlikely, it's actually impossible. Very, very impossible, in fact. Let me explain. While walking through the map, we can find multiple bloodstains on the floor. Fresh, bright red bloodstains. These bloodstains aren't present in the Fnaf 2 camera map, meaning they probably aren't blobs of tomato sauce scattered decoratively across the floor, but who knows. And think about the name of the minigame itself, the letters the puppet gives you, SAVETHEM. The puppet, who you're following throughout the minigame, wants you to save a group of people. But when Purple Guy appears in the party room, he makes it very clear that you can't. You can't save them. This minigame is about the puppet trying to convince you, Withered Freddy, to save a group of dead kids killed by William. We know these lines are spoken by the puppet thanks to the rest of the minigames in Fnaf 2 and the Fnaf movie. Every Fnaf 2 minigame involving the puppet has this robotic text-to-speech shouting out the letters in the background. Only Foxy Go Go Go, the only minigame missing the puppet, doesn't have them. At the end of the Fnaf movie, we get these same letters spelling out "Come Find Me" as the puppet's theme, My Grandfather's Clock, plays in the background. The FNAF Movie 2 trailer also shows that the puppet is using a toy called the Fast Talker to spell out these letters. Anyway, back to the bodies we find in this minigame. The Save Them text can't be referring to the MCI because they've already been quote-unquote saved. Another FNAF 2 minigame, Give Gifts Give Life, shows the puppet saving the MCI kids from death and allowing them to come back to life by possessing the animatronics. In the puppet's eyes, the MCI kids are accounted for, which is why she summons Withered Freddy, who is possessed by the soul of a missing kid called Gabriel, to try and save this new set of dead kids. So, we've got a set of dead kids, bloodstains on the floor implying a fresh kill, William telling Withered Freddy that these kids cannot be saved, and the puppet still trying to save them. We've known about all of this information for a while already, but there's one detail that many theorists overlook over and over again, and that barely anyone in the modern theorizing space ever brings up: the FNAF 2 source code. The FNAF game source codes have always been interesting places to hunt for lore. Most of the games have interesting file names that reveal things about the story, and FNAF 2 is no different, because if you go into the files for the Save Them minigame, you'll find the file names for each and every sprite used in the game. For example, Purple Guy's sprite is just called Man, debunking William is a woman theory. Mangle's sprite is called He Was Here, likely referring to William having visited Kid's Cove, as suggested by the corpse next to the animatronic. And finally, every single dead child has the same file name: You Can't, perfectly identical to what William says after jumping Freddy Fazbear. But what does this mean? Well, it confirms without a shadow of a doubt that the individuals the puppet wants to save are these dead kids scattered across the location, and also means that William is right. The puppet can't save them. At least, not in the way we thought. I know what you're thinking. How could these 5 kids possess their respective animatronics if they weren't stuffed into them like the original MCI victims? Well, the answer is pretty simple, because this isn't the first time an animatronic was possessed without a kid stuffed into it. The marionette is shown to have been possessed without Charlotte Emily being stuffed into it, and it's likely it didn't even come in contact with her. Possession doesn't require stuffing, and I think this is exactly what happened to the DCI kids. The puppet couldn't save them by tying them to the suits, but they managed to do it themselves. One of the DCI corpses is even right next to Toy Bonnie. This explains how all 4 toy animatronics have renders showing them with silver eyes, why they act weird during the night segments, and of course, why they were scrapped at the end of FNAF 2.
Robots scrapped. Freddy Fazbear's is closing. After being open only a few short weeks, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is closing its doors. The new animatronics will be scrapped due to possible malfunctions. However, the original characters are being kept in hopes of a possible reorganization of the company. It's a minor setback. We are confident that we will reopen someday, even if it is with a much smaller budget. CEO Fazbear Ant.
A lot of us assumed the reason the toy animatronics were scrapped at the end of FNAF 2 was due to the Bite of 87. But thanks to new information from the week before, an interactive novel that's a direct prequel to FNAF 1, we know that the most likely culprit for the bite was Withered Foxy. This makes sense with the context from FNAF 2 and 1, and I go more in depth on it in the video on screen right now. But to put it simply, after the bite, employees were told to use flashlights to protect themselves, and the only animatronic this trick fully works on in FNAF 2 is Withered Foxy. Phone Guy is also very suspicious of Foxy throughout both the week before and FNAF 1. So, if it wasn't the bite that got the toy scrapped, what was it? That's right, the DCI. If the toy started showing signs of possession in the time the FNAF 2 pizzeria was open, it would make sense that Fazbear would want to scrap them. After all, it's highly unlikely anyone other than William and Henry knew the truth about Remnant and Souls. These possible malfunctions were what the first night guard reported while he was working at the location.
Now that being said, no new system is without its kinks. You're only the second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished his week but complained about conditions. We switched him over to the day shift. So, hey, lucky you, right? Mainly he expressed concern that certain characters seemed to move around at night and even attempted to get into his office. Now, from what we know, that should be impossible. That restaurant should be the safest place on Earth.
The Bite of 87 wouldn't be a possible malfunction, but something minor, like the glitches the toys experienced during the night shifts, would definitely count. We also know that after the toys were scrapped, their casings eventually fell into the hands of the Fazbear's Fright team, who put them in a box in FNAF 3's office. On the topic of FNAF 3, more evidence for the toy animatronics being possessed is the appearance of Phantom Mangle and Phantom Balloon Boy in the game. It's heavily implied that FNAF 3's phantoms aren't just hallucinations, but rather something that Springtrap can actually control. It would make sense for all these phantoms, these ghosts, to come from the remnants of his past victims. But here's the real question. When did the DCI happen? When was it that these kids died? And why are they never mentioned ever again after this event? Well, at first, the answer seems clear. The DCI have to die sometime during FNAF 2, as suggested by this line from Phone Guy on night 4.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing. These things happen sometimes. Just as a side note though, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronics side if you can. Someone may have tampered with their facial recognition systems. We're not sure.
This investigation lines up with what the DCI would result in. But how can the toys be possessed if the DCI only die around night 4? Surely that doesn't make sense, right? Well, let's rewind to night 1, and what Phone Guy says about the first guard to work at the 1987 location. Phone Guy states that this night guard saw the animatronics move around and reported it to the company, who moved him to the day shift. Doesn't this sound awfully familiar? It's generally agreed on that William Afton, the purple guy, is the first night guard. It explains how he has a gold security badge in SAVETHEM, and why the toy's facial recognition system stopped working after his stay at the location. There's also this line from night 5 that backs this up even more.
Hey, keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees.
So, if William killed the DCI kids during his stay as a night guard, it makes sense why the animatronics start acting up, and why they turn on him and start trying to attack him while he's in the office. William was 100% confident that these dead kids wouldn't possess the toys, but he was proven wrong almost immediately. But why? Why would William kill these kids if he didn't want them to possess the toy animatronics? Well, I think the answer is quite simple. The missing children incident was done by William not just as a jab at his partner Henry Emily, but also to test the laws of possession. If he killed kids without stuffing them, they wouldn't possess anything, right? He was so confident in this that he assured the puppet and Withered Freddy that you can't save them. Even the sprites themselves are called "you can't" in the source code, because Afton isn't fully aware of how possession works yet. This is why he's so rattled when the animatronics move on their own during the night shift. He was fully confident that they wouldn't possess any of the characters. The investigation that happens later on is started when officials understand that the kids that went missing in the area all vanished around Freddy's. It's possible Fazbear Entertainment hid the bodies of the DCI, since William just left them lying around in the pizzeria. This is one of the many reasons I think the DCI has to be real, and not just the corpses of the MCI kids. Additionally, the shape of their sprites is completely different, with the DCI sprites being lankier and generally larger than those of the MCI. The upcoming FNAF 2 movie will almost definitely answer this debate, and it's looking good for us DCI truthers, since the trailer shows a group of paranormal investigators breaking into Freddy's and getting killed off. It's likely these kids are actually teenagers breaking into the 1987 Freddy's after hours. I think the "you can't" from the source code is a huge piece of evidence for the dead children incident being an actual event in-universe and not just an extraction of the MCI corpses. It proves that William is referring to the dead kids in his kill screen, and ties it all back to the puppet's "save them" text. Let's go over all the evidence for the DCI happening I've talked about until now. First off, there's the blood pools scattered across the building in the minigame. The MCI corpses wouldn't have any liquid blood in them anymore, meaning this blood has to be from a fresh incident. Then there's the minigame being called "Save Them", implying that whoever the puppet is trying to help hasn't possessed anything yet, unlike the MCI. Mangle moving around is also a strong point I didn't bring up earlier. After all, Mangle does have a dead kid right next to her, meaning he could already be possessed by the time we find the animatronic in Kid's Cove. This also ties into Mangle's name in the files. He was here, possibly referring to William not only going to Kid's Cove, but also killing a kid hiding there. There's also the phone calls from FNAF 2 talking about an investigation. This might be something else, unrelated to the DCI, like Charlie's death if you believe Charlie 87, but I find that highly unlikely. And, of course, we've got the name of the corpses in the code being "you can't". I think this single-handedly rules out the MCI from being the bodies, as it establishes the story Scott was trying to tell through FNAF 2 and its minigames, with William's kill screen completing the phrase started by the name of the minigame. I think the reason the DCI are so out of place is because Scott hadn't figured out how he wanted the toys to start acting up when he made FNAF 2, so he just threw in another set of dead kids, but because he regretted that decision, he's never brought them up again. Overall, I think the DCI has to happen, but they're probably not too relevant to the story as a whole. But what do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, which is why you should hop on your foot 14 times, slip on a banana peel, click your heels twice, and gently tap the subscribe button with your toe. Join my memberships for additional perks, and have a great rest of your day.